Hello and welcome to another AIC video. So I went on the internet this week and I found this, and we'll open it in just a second. I love going on Amazon, going to the computers, laptops, traditional laptops, setting a max price of $200, only new, sort price highest to lowest, to just see what random crap is on Amazon for under 200 bucks. 99% of what you see on there is Chromebooks, refurb computers that are listed as new. When I say refurb, I mean just used computers listed as new. Or computers that were new 4 or 5 years ago that were like $150 then, and now they're trying to sell them for $200 now. This, though, was different. It was listed as a new computer, but it has old components. And it's not just like a Dell that they're selling as a new computer that was, new 4 years ago. It is a completely different beast. The brand is Emerald Computers. It kind of has a Walt Disney design on that logo there. I haven't opened this, but I'll tell you what it says it is. So it's new, but it has an 8th gen Core i5. It says it has DDR3 memory, which, as far as I'm aware, an 8th gen CPU should have. Well, that was really in there. At least the packaging is. Packaging is nice and tight. Sorry, I'm also doing this around a camera. All 8th gen processors I'm aware of use DDR4 memory. And let's see. That's just a note from the Amazon seller. So it says it's using DDR3. 8th gen, as far as I'm aware, uses DDR4. And it's also a tough computer in that it has supposedly some protection to it. I'm pretty sure that this is something that's like rebranded out of China and the people just buy it and resell it. And that's why the packaging looked like it might have been open, because TYVR is not a brand I'm aware of, but it's all over the notebook. It's a nice note. Some handwritten lettering on there. So I'm going to have to do some research on this company that is TYVR. Get this box out of the way. All right, and here's the notebook. It is covered in stickers. A Texas assembled, designed by TYVR Technologies in Texas, assembled in China. Then Emerald Computers, and Emerald Computers is the brand that you see on Amazon. I'm going to go get a screwdriver, and we're going to open this puppy up and take a look on the inside. But as far as like the overall design, it's a fairly plasticky machine, but it doesn't feel bad, and it's not, I'm touching all over, and it is not a big fingerprint magnet, which I love. I put fingerprints on everything. It's got a nice peel. Oh, and I didn't say the price. This was only 188 bucks, which even for a Core i5 8th gen CPU is a pretty decent price. It has 8 gigs supposedly of RAM. I haven't checked that. That's what it says on the package. So I'm just guessing. Tenacious. TYVR. So there's some very interesting branding on here. It has the rubber corners, so it's meant to take a bit of a bump. It looks like it should have a 360 hinge, but it does not. See, those hinges kind of look like a Lenovo Yoga, but it does fold completely flat. That actually, initial impressions of that keyboard are really positive. Like, it's not like a old school ThinkPad keyboard, but they have a really nice feel to them. Not necessarily even across all keys, but let's go ahead. Let me grab a screwdriver. Let's take this thing apart. All right, we're using my kit I bought off Amazon a while back. I've really enjoyed this. I use it a lot for more than just working on computers. I'll put a link to it in the description. I just assume we're going to take out all the screws all around the bottom here. They're not captive. See if they're all the same length. So what attracted me to this laptop, besides the very low price of a $188, is the specs. I think an 8th gen CPU is a really good processor still. It gives you a lot of performance without having to get a brand new computer. There's a decided difference in performance between like a 7th gen and 8th gen, where there isn't much performance between like a 3rd gen and a 7th gen processor. Like, there's not a lot of big jumps in performance, but going from a at least in a laptop, because you know those were all dual core systems. I'll have to get that one out later. Where with the 8th gen, you jump up to a four core 8 thread processor. That's kind of the Ultrabook standard. We have AMD to thank for that with the Ryzen, because they just offered more cores and everything. So Intel had to finally. Sorry for my hairy arm across the screen. Now, before we actually get into this, oh crap. Yeah, I wasn't paying attention. One of these are not all the same length. They were all the same length. One of these ones from the back is longer. I'm pretty sure it's this one here. Let's see. Can I get this one to come out? Okay, so yeah, so far, all of them are the same length except for these two, which are a longer screw. So we'll have to remember that when we go to reassemble it. 2 more it looks like I need to do. And that makes sense if those screws are for the hinge, that they'd be a little bit longer, supporting a more weight. Let's see how easy this is to open it. Of course, I cut my fingernail, so I had to get my guitar pick and I dropped it. Okay. So far, no dice in getting it open. Hope we don't have to take these corners off, but we may have to. It looks like we might have to unscrew the corners. That is a lot of stinking screws. So far we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 screws. We are not able to open it yet. I'm getting to these corners. Yeah, I'm gonna unscrew these corners. I'm gonna do one for now and see if that is what allows us to pick up the corner. Now, they had other specs as far as what was available. They had the pink instead of the gray, and the pink was like $100 more, and that obviously I couldn't justify spending. Yeah, you have to take the corners off. Crazy. I couldn't justify spending $100 just for a different color, even though it had otherwise the same specifications. And then they did have an i7, which was about the same as the pink with the, and then they had the pink i7, which was even more money. So those are the options that I saw on Amazon, at least. Oh, try to keep these together best I can. So these corners, I don't know how protective they are. They don't feel like they're super thick rubber. What they probably are more is just a sacrificial piece of plastic that if you drop it and break these, you can more easily replace them if it's something you can actually buy from them. We'll have to see about that. I don't plan on damaging this or dropping it. I don't trust it's not a tough book, which are really meant for a lot of abuse. All right, yeah, now we can open this up. All right, so this is our storage, 256 gigs, which is what I paid for. 6,000 milliamp hour battery. Seems pretty decent. It's kind of empty though on the inside, but the cooler is about the size of what my X280 is, so that's pretty good. But what I don't see is upgradable RAM, and I'm guessing these are the RAM chips right here. SK Hynix, yeah, that would be our RAM. So unfortunately, you have 2 there and 2 there. I don't know if there's any on the other side. I'm not going to take it out, but it looks like that is soldered. And there is our wireless. So that is soldered as well. So there is not much upgrading on here. At least the storage is. But if you look at that, you're going to have a hard time upgrading that because that is a single-sided slot there. So not impossible, but definitely not convenient to replace that, finding a single-sided SSD. Just trying to see if it says if it's NVMe or SATA 3, and it doesn't say. I'm going to guess just based off cost that it's a SATA 3, because again, this was only $188. So let's go ahead, put her back together, and see what kind of performance we get out of it. All right, we're back together. That was a lot of stinking screws. A little disappointing on the inside as far as the RAM not being upgradable. That's one thing I really don't like about my X280 is it does not have upgradable RAM. And I wonder if the Core i7, I think it has 16 gigs of RAM, if that is upgradable or if it just has a 16 gig solder, and if that's worth the extra $100. I don't know. Before I turn it on, I wanted to just go reports. Nothing in the front. On the right hand side, we have a micro SD card slot. Would have been nice if that was full size. As you saw, there was plenty of room in there for it to be a full-size SD card, USB and headphone microphone jack, which I think that icon is upside down. So that's kind of funny. Or at least a headphone jack. It doesn't show a microphone, it just shows a headphone. So we'll have to see if that's a combo jack. Then on this side, we have the power, which is a tiny little barrel plug, another USB, an HDMI, but the HDMI has this like weird, like somebody took a drill at it or something. I'm gonna have to reach out to them and ask them about that. But HDMI and a USB Type-C. So I'm gonna see if this can charge off the USB Type-C. All the other 7th and 8th gen laptops that I have do charge from USB Type-C, whether they have a separate charging port or not. If that's the case, that'd be a big plus to me, if that's got power on it. Power button, of course, as part of the keyboard. A lot of these, even if they're charged, don't turn on until you have plugged in the charger, because they disconnect the battery before they get shipped as a safety thing. At least I think it's a safety thing. It does have a really glossy screen, which I don't love. Let's see. Can you turn on now? There we go. It does have a backlit keyboard. You can see that. Has the nice logo on the screen. Let's go ahead and turn this around, because I think, yep, that logo lights up as well, which is a nice touch. Kind of very Apple-esque. All right. And it does have Windows 10, it looks like. Wrong thing. So it is 1920 by 1080. So that's a nice resolution on the screen. And sorry for the glares. Let me reposition my camera, see if I can get rid of those just a second. All right, so first and foremost, this is not a very bright screen. It's made worse by the camera. Just reflect, like you can see me in this reflection. That's pretty bad. Viewing angles are not bad, except for, you know, you're seeing everything around you. I haven't played with the brightness a lot, and that's down and that's up again, and you can see it is up all the way. So brightness on the screen is not its thing. This is meant to be used in a dark place. Let's open up Task Manager, see what we're dealing with here. So we do have a Core i5 running it's an 8250. And we do have our 8 gigs of RAM. I'll have to download CPU-Z here in a moment. It already has Chrome installed. There was no profile, like it wasn't a new setup on here. It was like a default like account login. So I'm going to wipe this before I do anything on it, but it looks like a fairly clean install of Windows. I mean, we have a Foxit PDF reader. We have Audacity. K-Lite codec. See, I don't know what this is. So yeah, I'm going to wipe it before we do anything and I attach it to my home network. So let me do that. And well, actually, let's do this. Let's look at the BIOS, see if what settings we have in the BIOS. Yeah, that's just so dim. It's kind of crazy to how dark it is. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of this super glossy screen. Okay. So that's our BIOS. It's American Megatrends. Yeah, we have the i5, 8 gigs of RAM, no password, There's our boot, save and exit. So we really don't have like any options on this system. We have some boot options. We have a security and date and time. That is really nothing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and reboot the system. We're going to factory wipe it, make sure there's nothing on here that I'm not a fan of, and we will be back in a bit. All right, so I'm going to finish this video out with two last things. I went ahead and wiped it just so it's a fresh, clean install. Did Windows updates on it. I guess three things, because I want to talk about the company a little bit. I did a little bit of research on them, so I want to talk about that at the very end. But before we do that, I want to go ahead and open up CPU-Z. Just go through and see what we have here. So we have the Core i5 8250U. It's a Kaby Lake. Main board just says PCI Express 3.0, American Megatrends. Not a whole lot of information on here. I doubt there will ever be a BIOS update for this. It does say it's running DDR3, which is really strange to me. Sorry, just make sure I have battery, because it does charge off the USB Type-C, but the port is pushed in really far. And so I don't know if it needs to be adjusted so that it's in there, and it is charging, but I did have to push it and make sure it's just right. But it's running dual channel DDR3, which is weird. If I'm wrong, let me know, but I'm pretty sure all DDR or all 8th gen Core i5 should be running DDR4. Graphics, just Intel UHD graphics. And we'll go ahead and run the performance benchmark. All right, so we did the benchmarking, and you see the So the scores, compare that to other laptops you might be interested in, other laptops I've done. That is the most recent version of the benchmark test. Next thing I want to talk about is the keyboard. You have the Tenacious logo and the TYVR. I'm not quite sure what this stands for. I tried to look it up and I couldn't find details on if that had any specific meaning. I want to talk about the keyboard and touchpad. This is a very familiar layout to me for a lot of budget systems where you have your keys and then you have your home row here, power button up at the top. So it's not a spectacular keyboard because this row does force the keyboard to be off center, which if you watch any of my videos is a huge pet peeve for me. The other thing it does is when you're on the keys, you can hear it already. I'm clicking by accident on the touchpad. It's a nice big generous touchpad, but it does not do much in the way of palm rejection, and it is very easy to click and move the mouse when you're typing. So I would have liked this to have been moved over just a touch, or get rid of this row so that you move this somewhere else on the keyboard, so that way the keyboard could be more centered. That's a personal preference. I'm sure if you spent any time with this laptop at all, it'd suddenly become a non-issue. I just use a lot of different computers. A lot of them are 14-inch-ish with that keyboard, with a very similar keyboard layout. So not a big deal, but just something I thought I'd mention. So I read the back of this previously. This is the company who makes the laptop, or I say makes, they design it, I guess, in Texas, and it's made, of course, in China, like everything else. But this was also in the box, and I didn't realize that Emerald Computers is actually a company that's kind of local to me. I don't live in the Phoenix area anymore, but I used to, and so this isn't too far. It's about 45 minutes or so from my old house. So it is a company here in the US, specifically in Arizona. As far as I can tell, they're the only ones who are selling this laptop. I might be wrong on that, but everywhere I've looked, they have been ingrained with this brand. So whether it be on their own website, Amazon, whatever, the TYVR and Emerald Computers, I believe it's an in-house brand that they are selling. So that's really cool. I'm actually glad about this. Hopefully that money did go back to support them some. I love local companies doing cool things like this. When I was a teenager, early 20s, there were a lot of small boutique computer companies that you could go in and have a desktop computer made. You can even buy bare bones laptops where you'd supply your own CPU and memory and storage and stuff. Some of them didn't even come with screens. You had to, source a screen. They had a selection of compatible screens. So that was something that was pretty common, 20, 25 years ago, which isn't quite common anymore. And if they're making and designing their own products to sell in their store, I think that's awesome. This is a very interesting product at this price point. A little bit more research. They have 3 tiers. So this tier is tier 1, which is the Core i5 with 8 gigs of RAM. The tier 2 is the same Core i5 with 16 gigs of RAM. And the third tier is the Core i7 with 16 gigs of RAM. So a few different levels of system you can buy. I would love if this laptop was metal, or at least this top cover was metal. I think for the price point, obviously they're not going to get there. But if they offered, say, like the Core i7 model, and it came in a metal case, it would justify its price a little bit more, and I think it would definitely stand out. But this design would be fairly expensive to get manufactured, so I'm sure that would increase the price significantly. I don't do much manufacturing, obviously, so I'm not 100% on that. But very interesting computer. If you're looking for a budget system, this definitely takes the cake over a lot of the Celeron systems that sell for the same price. It's a much better configuration. especially if you're not wanting to buy something used. Even though it is an older CPU, definitely something to at least consider. I'll throw a link to their Amazon store in the description. That'll be an affiliated link. If you have any questions about this laptop or you'd like to see me do anything specific with it, definitely let me know. I'm very interested to see what you guys think of it. Anyways, thank you for watching. Hope you have an amazing day.